David Lee Roth has canceled the rest of his solo tour, and some of you will chuckle at that news because it's become kind of a thing on YouTube. All these people are posting videos of David Lee Roth and his recent live performances, and it's pretty bad. I don't remember who we were talking about this with on the show recently, but we were talking, oh, yes, when the Melted Chapsticks were here in studio with us, we were talking about Motley Crue and how for years now, people have been posting videos on YouTube about Vince Neil and how terrible his vocals are. And when I say that's been going on for years, I mean probably close to 2 decades now. Well, David Lee Roth has also gotten similar treatment, especially over the past, I don't know, year. You know, at one point he had said he was retiring from touring. He had posted, this was a couple of years ago before he decided to come back. He had posted something on social media about, it was very cryptic, but it sounded like he was saying that he was having some severe health crisis or something, because he said he couldn't perform anymore because, I wish I could remember how he put it exactly. It sounded like he was hinting at something was very wrong. And he said something about every time he steps on stage, he imperils his own future. And doctors have told him that. He actually used that terminology, indicating something medical, that every time he was stepping on stage, he was imperiling his own future. And so he wasn't going to do it anymore. And he even makes a very dark joke in the post, something about, because Eddie Van Halen, of course, passed away a number of years ago. And he says something about, something in the post about Eddie, I might be right behind you or something. A little creepy, very cryptic, but he basically announced his retirement from the stage. And then, of course, as often happens, you know, just like in professional wrestling and in the music industry, retirements are never permanent until you're dead, right? Once you're dead, you might, sorry, I just got a text that made me chuckle. Once you're dead, that's when you're definitely done. So David Lee Roth is not dead, but he did cancel his current tour. Now, it would be interesting. Oh, the other thing that happened, too, is Kiss, at one point during their farewell tour, David Lee Roth was the opening act. I think it was during the farewell tour. If not, it was the one right before it. You know, the end of the road tour, I should say, to be more specific, so I don't get a tongue lashing from my fellow Kiss fans. Roth had left the tour, or was asked to leave the tour. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but all of a sudden, David Lee Roth was no longer an opening act on the tour. And Gene Simmons, I forget if this was in a post or if he said it in an interview, but he was talking about David Lee Roth and kind of comparing him to Elvis. He's talking about how it's typical of Gene Simmons. And by the way, Kiss is my favorite band. I love Gene Simmons. So if I say anything critical about him, I'm being constructively critical. I do love him, but he does make me cringe at times. he said something about, he's talking about Dave. And he says something about how Elvis got to a point where, you know, because if you look at the career of Elvis Presley, you know, you've got young Elvis. He was thin. He was, you know, doing the movies in addition to music, and he was so cool and so hip. And then you've got, look, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm going to be blunt. You've got Fat Elvis. I don't know how else to say it. Vegas Elvis. Maybe that's a more polite way of saying it. You've got Vegas Elvis, you know, where he's wearing the jumpsuits and he's a little heavy and he's not necessarily, if you see some of those performances, he's not the Elvis of old or the Elvis who was young. He's a different Elvis. And Gene Simmons kind of compares David Lee Roth to Elvis. Not that David Lee Roth got heavy. David Lee Roth is still very thin as he ever was. But kind of saying, you know, Elvis got to a point where he was a bit past his prime and could not recapture his former younger glory. And that David Lee Roth might be in that same position, might be in that same point of his career. And Roth responded to this on social media. I don't remember which platform it was, by offering Gene Simmons an emoji, or actually a series of emojis, but they were all the same, and they were just a middle finger to Gene Simmons. And that was it. He didn't try to defend himself. He didn't try to directly address anything that Gene had said. Now, whether or not that comparison is fair, I'll leave that up to you to decide for yourself what you think of it. I don't think Gene should have said any of that. I think that was mean. Again, I love Gene. Kiss is my favorite band. I love Gene. I love, everything he's done except for the things that make me cringe a little, and I did cringe at that. But he said it, and he did apologize too. Gene did apologize after, and he, because there was some backlash, and he said, "Look, I didn't mean to hurt Dave's feelings, and I am sorry. Sometimes I speak out of turn." And Gene has done a lot of that over the course of his life and career, speaking out of turn. Has it gotten a little bit worse as he's gotten older? Probably. That seems to happen to everyone, though. This is a bit of an aside, but did you know there is research that shows, people when they get, and Gene is what? He's late 70s now, or mid 70s? Mid 70s. Did you know that because when people get older, people reach a certain age and they start to be a little more outspoken, and they start to say, some of those things that you think maybe should be inside thoughts become outside thoughts. And older people of a certain age will kind of blurt things out that maybe a younger person wouldn't. And everybody kind of assumes that that's because when people get old, they just don't care anymore. They're like, I'm old. I might as well just say what's on my mind. Might as well just speak whatever pops into my head. Who cares, right? I'm old. What are you going to do? People assume that that's the reason, but there's actually something that happens to the brain where that, for lack of, and look, I'm not a neuroscientist. This is, I only know what I've read, and I'm trying to explain it and articulate it as best as I can. And I'm probably getting some of this wrong because, again, I'm not a neuroscientist. But my understanding is your brain at a certain point does actually change to where that filter that exists in your brain, that filter that sort of prevents you from blurting out things that should remain inside thoughts, prevents those things from getting outside, that filter kind of goes away. And that's why, sometimes it can be uncomfortable if you have old people in your family. Sometimes people think it's cute. Oh, grandma, grandma blurted out something racist today. For some reason, if it's your grandma, you're supposed to think it's cute and funny. When anyone else, you would be horrified, but it's grandma. So, oh, that's so funny what grandma said. It's like, no, actually, that's not funny, but I really wish grandma hadn't said that. But there is something that changes in the brain. So maybe that's why Gene Simmons keeps saying cringy things, because he's said other cringy things. But he seems to do it more as he gets older. Maybe that filter is going away in his brain. The point being, David Lee Roth cut his tour short. I know I took a very long way around back to this, but he abruptly canceled the rest of his remaining tour. This just happened recently. It says here, scrubbing upcoming shows in cities like Louisville, Kentucky, and Dillon, Colorado from his schedule. I don't know why those two cities are mentioned specifically. Full refunds are being issued to ticket holders, and no official reason was provided, though industry speculation points to weak ticket sales. Now, why would there be weak ticket sales? Who doesn't want to see David Lee Roth? Well, here's the problem. If there's all these videos of you butchering these songs, I mean, it's really bad. I would say, I don't know if I would say worse than Vince Neil, but pretty bad. That's not exactly a good advertisement for your show, for your tour, right? If people can go online, and it's easier now than ever, and go on social media and find out and discover that you can't sing anymore. And in reality, if we're really being honest, there are people who went to see Van Halen, when Roth rejoined the band in, what would that have been? 2007, 2008, around there, 2009, maybe. On the reunion tour with Roth, who would say, even then, wow, Roth, really, he's just kind of talking his way through the songs. Can't really do it. That's, cumulatively, I don't know why I can't say that word. You know, you get to 2026 and you see these videos of Roth just acting like a buffoon on stage, and he can't sing at all. I mean, he's that bad. You know, you're probably not going to sell a lot of tickets. Somehow this has not hurt Motley Crue. I don't know why, but the Vince Neil situation with Motley Crue, maybe fans are just used to it. They just know, okay, Vince is going to sound terrible, but the rest of the band is fine. Then there's all that stuff about backing tracks and stuff. We won't get into all that. We don't have time to get into all of that. But Motley Crue has not seemingly suffered from Vince Neil's inability to sing. But apparently this is, I mean, I'm guessing that's the reason he has weak ticket sales. Yeah. But there's no official reason that's been given. Oh, there is something here about Sammy Hagar's response. Former Van Halen rival Sammy Hagar posted a sympathetic video wishing Roth well and publicly inviting him to guest perform or host during his Las Vegas residency. Sammy always tries to be the bigger person, doesn't he? He always takes the high road. He really does. I love Sammy Hagar. I'm a bit of a anomaly, perhaps. I am one of the few Van Halen fans who will publicly say I actually preferred Van Halen with Sammy Hagar to David Lee Roth. Every other Van Halen fan on earth will tell you that they prefer Roth to Hagar. And yet, this is a fact. If you just go by the numbers, they were more successful during the Hagar years than the Roth years. Don't get me wrong. During the Roth years, they were already huge. They were already one of the biggest bands in the world. But they sold even more tickets and more albums with Hagar when Hagar was in the band. And yet, no one ever likes to say, I'll do it. I'll be the uncool kid in the room. I don't care. I love them both. I love all eras of Van Halen. I even like some of the stuff on the one album they did with Gary Cherone. So I love both Dave and Sammy. I do. I love them both for different reasons. They're different flavors, right? But gun to my head, I got to go Hagar. Hagar's got the pipes. Hagar's a hell of a singer. Roth is a more clever lyricist. I will say that. Got to give Roth that. But Hagar is a better singer, and Hagar can still sing. To this day, Hagar can sing. I don't see Hagar canceling anything. And Hagar's older than Roth by, I don't know, 6 or 7 years? And Hagar is still able to do it. All right. We absolutely have to get to a break. But that is the David Lee Roth news. He has canceled the rest of his summer tour, and he has not said why. And I do hope he's okay. I know we picked on him a little bit. I picked on him a little bit, but I do hope he's okay. Maybe he's going to try to maybe work with a vocal coach and see if there's any way to salvage what's left of those pipes. God bless him. But he's done for now. And you know, he's 71 years old. I mean, that might be it. You know, it wouldn't be the first time he's retired if he is in fact retiring. We'll see.